Good evening, everyone. We'll be starting soon as the panelists arrive. Point to note for all the people in the audience, kindly keep your mics muted at all times unless the moderator takes your name. Hi, Paula ma'am.
Hi there.
Hello. You can hear me, right?
Yes, I can hear you fine.
Okay, perfect. We'll just wait for the other panelists to join in.
Sure.
Hi, Unnati ma'am. Hello, Harishta. Good evening.
Hi, good evening.
We are waiting for one more panelist, Sam sir, to join and then we'll begin.
Sure.
Hi Anjali, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. I can hear you.
Great.
Welcome everyone. We have one more panelist who's yet to join and we'll be starting soon. Okay. Hi Samsa.
Hello everyone, good evening.
Okay, should we start the session then?
Yes.
Okay, so hello and good evening one and all. Welcome to the Startup Panel discussion at Pune Startup Fest 2021. Very warm welcome to our guests. I'm Anjali, the student moderator for today's discussion. Let me begin with an introduction of our esteemed panel. Our first panelist, Mr. Sam Besler, is an entrepreneur and an early stage investor.
There's an echo in your voice.
Yeah. Is it okay now?
Yes, it's fine.
Okay. So our first panelist, Mr. Sam Besler, is an entrepreneur and an early stage investor. He has built 9 companies in the past 9 years. His company Brand Samosa helps businesses and startups in lead generation, branding, marketing, and sales optimization. He has a mission to inspire and empower businesses and entrepreneurs to grow and create a positive impact. He's immensely popular on LinkedIn with over 2.6 lakh followers on the platform. We welcome this true blue entrepreneur today at Pune Startup Fest. Thank you for joining us, Sam, sir. So our next panelist is Mr. Harishta Bravala. Mr. Harish is nothing short of a pioneer. He founded India's first e-commerce website in 1997. Then in 2009, when Facebook was just catching up in India, he founded a social media agency, Social Wavelength, which is now known as Miram. He has been recognized as one of the 100 smartest digital marketing leaders in 2019 and has been featured on Impact's list of 100 most influential digital professionals. Harishta, we are so grateful to have you here. Thank you for joining us.
Pleasure.
Our third panelist is Ms. Paula McGlynn, co-founder and CEO of Gulbadan Talkies and Marathi content brand Bhadipa. Started in 2016, Bhadipa is now an extremely popular Marathi digital content player. Paula ma'am too has been featured as one of the 100 smartest digital marketing leaders by World Digital Marketing Congress 2019. And besides being at the helm of creative production, she also plays a role in front of the camera as an actor. And finally, her introduction would be incomplete if I didn't mention that she is the heartthrob of several Maharashtrians. Thank you, Paula ma'am, for joining us. So, our moderator for the session is Ms. Unnati Bagga. She helps companies and individuals to scale online with her organic growth hacks. Working with numerous clients, she understands platforms beyond algorithms and humans beyond their Insta profile. She's been in the industry for 3 years and working as a consultant for 1 year now. Her LinkedIn tag says she's an organic growth specialist. Thank you, Nati ma'am, for agreeing to moderate the session.
The pleasure is all mine. Thank you so much for arranging such an amazing panel. I think we're going to have one of a hell discussion, so everybody is ready. So then I'll start the session.
Sure.
Welcome to all the panelists. Sam, my first question would be from you. You have 2.6 lakh followers on LinkedIn, which is huge. And there are tons of stories that I see on your profile about how you were a failure story and how now you're a success story, and everything, and every particular story is so inspiring. How do you amalgamate storytelling with your brand and build it online? What's the basis of storytelling? How do you do it so seamlessly without it looks effortless, but I'm pretty sure there's a lot of effort involved behind it.
Of course, definitely. And the quickest and the easiest answer can be to share a lot of stories. You actually need to have stories, right? So that's also just because it's easier to on a social media platform and copy from Google and from somebody else and paste it as your own. A lot of people think that brand building is an easy exercise. Well, it may look easy in the beginning, and then when you start getting into it, the real people start seeing through it. So I was speaking at an event some time back, and I said this particular thing, which is very true in a lot of context, is that the only way to build credibility is not to try build a credibility. And I'll tell you what I mean by that. The moment you try to create, create quote unquote credibility, you're trying to pull up things and you're trying to reverse engineer from what people would want you to be seen as. And the problem with that philosophy is that you start with people and then you see, okay, what would they want, to like, and then you create content accordingly. The moment that target audience starts changing, that whole equation starts changing, because then you have to say something else. So when I'm talking to students, I need to say different things because my credibility for students or my brand for students has to be different. And then I need to say something else to the businesses or business owners and then CEOs. And so it keeps on changing. This digital media, keeps your digital footprints always over there, and algorithms will make sure that you will see a certain different post and somebody else will see a certain different post and follow will see a different post. You will have different viewpoints about me. And you guys talk to each other, or when the overall people talk to each other at an event, talking to each other, you have different moments of truth about my brand, and that creates inconsistency, and that kills your credibility. The only thing and the best thing to have a lot of stories or to have a credible brand is to only ask yourself that what is my truth, and then share that truth. And that's pretty simple, and it solves a lot of problems. That you don't have to think content. I get a lot of questions every day on LinkedIn messages and otherwise also that, okay, I'm struggling while creating content. How do I create so much of content? How do I write stories like you? How do I write posts and articles like you? And the only thing I tell them that, okay, just look at your life and I'm sure you've done some shit. It can be small, big, whatever. You just have the dare to share it. Some people will always not like you. Okay, and no matter how hard you try, they will not like you. It's just the way it is, and that's what brand is all about. It has to be differentiated. It cannot be for everyone. If you share your stories with people, whatever you have done, it's sometimes failure, sometimes success, and then you'll start creating that following base, and then you start growing. This is precisely how I did it, and this is how I think it should be done. This is how it has always been done. The great successful brands have dared to be true to themselves, dared to be specific to different people, and then build relationships with those people, and they stopped caring about everybody else also. So that's a long answer I gave. In fact, I tried to do a lot of things in it, but then the simplest answer is, in order to create stories, you have to have stories, and then you have to stick with your stories, not to look at the audience and then reverse engineer from that. Well, that will kill you.
Absolutely. I think this is one field wherein you can't fake it to make it. You need to be authentic. You need to be out there, and people will start trusting you. And I think that's how brands are built. And that's why we connect with some brands so well. And with some brands, we just feel that there's a bunch of marketing people sitting behind it and trying to build something. So I appreciate whatever you share on LinkedIn, and it has been a guiding light for most of us over here. So thank you so much for that gorgeous answer. And I think the biggest takeaway is be authentic. My next
Absolutely. And then one
question.
more thing, just to wrap this whole thought is, there are two parts of it. One part I talked about that, okay, you need to have stories, meaning you have to do something in your life and then take it out to the world. So you can be authentic and you can talk about it. And of course, there are some technical parts of it. The second part is that, okay, how do I write the content? How do I start it? And, some marketing principles, some psychology principles that you need to understand. So those are the technical parts of it. What sentence to begin with, what time to post, how many tags, how many hashtags. So I'm not getting into the technical part of it, but that's equally important as well.
Makes a lot of sense. See, you have a story, that's one thing, but how you portray it over the internet also is a game changer. So, yes, these two things are interconnected, and that's where marketing and marketing agencies come into the picture. Because story everybody has. The tactics and the presentation skills is what agencies like Brand Samosa bring on the table. So, yes, much appreciated. Thank you so much for such a precise answer. And now my next question is to Mr. Harish. Sir, you have been a part of various global events. Do you think there is a difference between how digital marketing is perceived in India versus how it is perceived outside India? Is digital marketing very geography specific, or is it the same everywhere? The basics of storytelling and marketing and humanization of whole content and personalization remains the same, or are there any slight differences between how we Indians perceive marketing and how it is seen outside India?
Sure. So the answer has many parts. First is that the philosophy of digital marketing, the basic fundamentals is pretty much the same. Whatever be the geography, there are cultural nuances that come from market to market, and those cultural nuances need to actually start getting reflected in that specific market. So if sitting from India, I can say, can I do digital marketing for a brand in USA or Europe? The answer is yes. The basic technology, how does Facebook, LinkedIn work, we will understand. But what is the cultural context, you will not get unless you are present in that market, or you have somebody in that market who can guide you on the cultural context. So the cultural context is important. The basic underlying technology on digital marketing is the same. The second big difference is that in India, we are still maybe a couple of years away from where we see digital marketing happening in USA or Europe. We still think of marketing in India as what can I do on Facebook, what can I do on LinkedIn. But to me, the power of digital is beyond marketing. Digital is really about experience creation. In the journey of a customer, how can you identify every single touch point, and how can you use the power of digital to be sure that you make that touch point very, very frictionless, which is what we see now already happening in global markets. Perhaps in India, a bit of a catch up still has to happen. We are still stuck on the social channel kind of a platform. Our outreach has to expand to that particular level. That's probably the difference that I see.
Makes sense. So you think that we need to have a wider perspective when it comes to marketing? Yes, of course, the local content has to be kept into consideration, but the thing is, we have to move beyond the social channels and see marketing as the entire picture. Digital marketing is much more digital and beyond Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn is what you have to convey, right?
Yeah. And if I quickly give an example to help you understand my point, I mean,
Sure.
suppose you look at a brand like Marriott Hotel, right? If I booked a room in Marriott Hotel, the moment I get down from my aircraft, I already get my room key on my phone. On my phone, I already have a digital key which I can use to open my room. So when I go to the hotel, I don't need to wait at the counter. The concept of a check-in counter is obsolete. The hotel has all my information already. They know from where I'm coming. They have my passport details. Room is paid for. I mean, what's the logic of a check-in counter? You don't require it anymore. I already have a digital key. Moment I sit in the cab, I can place an order with the hotel for a cup of coffee. When I reach the room and I open my door, a message immediately goes to the coffee shop saying guest has checked in, please deliver coffee. And coffee comes to my room. And I'm sitting in my hotel room and I'm finding the temperature very hot or very cold. I can just call out to a Google Assistant saying please set the temperature at 22 degrees. Not only will the temperature get set at 22 degrees, but they will also record in the database. So next time I check into a Marriott anywhere else in the world, I will find the temperature already set at 22 degrees. I want to go for a meeting. I call out to my Google Assistant and say, please book a cab for me, an Uber cab or whatever. Not only is the cab booked, but the hotel concierge is automatically informed that so and so cab has been booked for so and so guest. So when I walk down, the concierge already knows which is my cab. This is to me the power of digital. At each of these points, digital technology has been used to remove friction. Now, if this is the kind of experience I have with a hotel brand, it doesn't matter how much ad somebody else is putting. If my experience is good, I mean, that is really what counts. So I think the power of digital is really to create these brilliant experiences, using data, using technology, which actually creates value for the customer.
Exactly. It's an amalgamation of emotions and technology coming together and rendering experiences that we always remember. And then I think that's why the best of best brands don't run ads. We'll never see an ad for Jaguar, maybe, or any other amazing brand because we anyway value them for the experience that they render. So thank you so much, Mr. Harish, for that amazing, amazing answer and giving us a wider perspective and not a cliche answer to my question. Now I move on to Miss Paula. Thank you so much for being over here and being a lady guest on a panel. So I welcome you, and I have checked out your LinkedIn profile, and to be honest, you are totally influencing the youth out there. You're trying to tell that nothing can just push you towards knowing English and producing content in English. You've embraced the local content so well. So, my question to you is, what is storytelling for you? Because you tell your story so beautifully. What is the key that you seamlessly integrate storytelling with branding for a business? Because at the end of the day, the ulterior motive of any business is to earn profit. So how do you seamlessly amalgamate both of these things, the art of storytelling and then putting branding into perspective, so that the actual image comes out to be very beautiful and the branding is done?
Thank you so much for the introduction, and thank you guys for inviting me for this panel also. To answer your question, I would say that but I haven't really done very many businesses, so I can only speak for what we've done at Bhadipa. But when we came together and decided to start a company, there was a very clear message behind it that, we want to make good content that we want to watch. We want to work with good people who we respect and treat with good ethics, and we want to make good money while we're doing it. So, with these things in mind, when the idea of doing Marathi language content came about, we really felt like it needs to feel like a community. And Bharatiya Digital Party is the full form of Bhadipa. So when we decided to come up with a name, we wanted there to be a lot of potential in a name like that. So apart from the fun of condensing it to Bhadipa, and kind of sounds like a swear word, kind of sounds like a political party, but at the same time, Bharatiya Digital Party, it's not a Marathi name because we want to keep that door open for the future. Because Marathi content, in our opinion, is also not only meant for Marathi people. I think people from all languages and all backgrounds can enjoy Marathi language content the same way that we all enjoy German content, we enjoy Spanish content, all of that stuff. So keeping that slightly global aspect in the name, keeping it accessible that way, and then also calling it a digital party was meant to make it feel like, the people who are watching it, the people who are on board with Bhadipa, feel like they're part of a community, like it's part of a movement. And all of that is also built into our merchandise, like our t-shirts, which say Majishi Need Bolaitsa or Amza Hai. These are our newer ones, or the older ones like Brocha, Jagat Bhari. All of these are ways of projecting to the world. I mean, why does anybody buy merch, right? It's to show people that you are part of a certain community. And it's the same thing that we've tried to kind of carry forward with Bhadipa as an identity, is making sure that it's something that everybody can participate in. And I think probably that was very important, especially because we were the first Marathi digital channel, the first YouTube channel that was doing exclusively Marathi language entertainment content. And so we didn't want it to be too narrow, but we also wanted to kind of identify ourselves as something more than just Marathi. And that's kind of what we've carried through to today.
That's a very valid point. I was just listening to this interview with Udemy's founder where he said people buy courses all the time, but they leave it. They just leave them, they never consume it. So the future lies in cohort learning. which means that you need to have a community so that people can relate to, talk to. And I think that's why platforms like Clubhouse are now thriving, because they give you a sense of community. You can just join in any time, and there's a bunch of people from your community talking from all over the world. And I think that's the right basis of storytelling. When you amalgamate what's relatable with the story, the brand amplifies A, and B, people just kind of give you user generated content, because they just buy anything out of that community. Very rightly said. Thank you so much for telling us why most of these big personalities are now pushing community building and everything. So thank you so much for your answer. My next question
Unnati
is
ma'am.
to Mr. Sam.
Hello, Unnati ma'am.
Hello.
Yeah, would you just let me say a line? I just wanted to
Sure,
give a
sure.
quick reminder to the audience that we'll be doing a Q&A in the end, and we'll pick your questions from the chat. So please drop it there along with the name of the panelist you want to ask the question to. That's it. Please take over, ma'am.
All right. So, Mr. Sam, my question to you is digital marketing, sales, lead generation, and all those amazing, huge mumbo jumbo words that we hear. How long have you been into this circle and this circle of words? How long have you been into this game of digital marketing? And how, according to you, has it evolved? It can be before the pandemic and after the pandemic it has evolved, or it was continuously evolving, and now you, as a person who has been in the industry for so long, can actually make a timeline of pehle ye chalta tha, then this is working, then this is working. So how do you think it has evolved?
Yeah. All right. So I was born into sales. I mean, my first job was a salesperson, and it was telesales back in those days. It was early 2000, and we were selling. I think the postpaid connections to the prepaid owners of Hutch. It was Hutchison SR those days, and now it became Vodafone All. So I sold almost everything on the planet. So insurances, services, products, and then I became an entrepreneur. Before that, I was a trainer for sales, and I set up sales operations for a lot of companies. And then I became an entrepreneur. Since then, I've been selling products, dreams, ideas, now companies to different people. Uh, so that's my interaction with it. How the game has changed is the medium of communication, and the power has moved from the salespeople or the companies into the hands of the decision makers. So I'll give you like an elaborated answer on that. Uh, Earlier, when the medium of communication was very limited, so there was a newspaper, and before that, I mean, after that, there was a radio, and then there was television, and advertisement and sales has always been following where the consumer attention has been. So where the eyeballs were going, advertisers were going and trying to sell them their ideas. And the way it used to happen is that the big companies, they would flood the billboards, the newspaper, the television, the radio with their message, and the consumer would uh, consume that message, and they would have no other way to verify whether this message was true or not, and they would have no other way to compare the truth, have other options or whatever. So they dependency on the salespeople and the company and on their message was very, very high. And eventually, whoever was able to flood my mind more eventually would get the sale. After the digital media, when we've got these little devices, the game has completely shifted. Now I have the information as a consumer, and the moment somebody calls me as a salesperson or I see an advertisement from a company, I can get into my phone and I can try to know more about that company. I can find out more information about the problem that I'm facing. I can find out more information about the solution they're providing and how competitive that solution is. And decision making now is not dependent on the companies or the salespeople. It is completely dependent on the consumer itself. Now that's a powerful, powerful shift that has happened. Unfortunately, a lot of companies are not realizing that. They're still trying to flood the advertisement space with their message. ये मेरा product, ये मेरी company, इतने का मैं बेचता हूँ, ले लो. I find it really funny that people send messages in WhatsApp groups, in Facebook groups. Anybody looking for digital marketing services, contact me. Or rather, they say, feel free to contact me. As we like, मतलब कोई बात नहीं, डरने की टेंशन नहीं है, मेरे पास बहुत डिजिटल मार्केटिंग सर्विसेज है, आ जाना, डरना नहीं, मैं दे दूंगा तुमको. Now that's a very stupid way of marketing and advertisement, because we have gone to a level now that if I have a problem, like a health problem, before I go to the doctor, I actually Google about my disease or the symptoms that I'm having before I walk into the doctors. And the reason I do that, it feels, it makes me feel empowered that I know a lot about the thing. Then I can ask intelligent and better questions to the doctor. Based on the questions that I'm asking and the answer that the doctor is giving, I'm able to choose whether this doctor is a piece of shit or he's actually a good doctor. Meaning, even if I end up buying the services of the doctor, it is me who has decided to purchase that service. The chances of me going back tomorrow and cribbing about the services is far less. So this whole decision making game that has shifted is actually killing the customer service as a whole. And that's where you see the customer service departments are going off the market. So Facebook doesn't have a customer service like the telephone. I've been into that call center environment also. Skype doesn't have it. A lot of big companies don't have it at all. PayPal doesn't have it because it's not needed. The customers are taking decision on their own. So that's one part that people are missing. The another change that has happened is pandemic has not done anything, honestly speaking, and it just fast forwarded the transition. People were not realizing that we were going there. Very quickly we were going there, and if the changes were to take 5 years, pandemic has just brought those changes in 6 months or maybe 8 months. And the people and the companies and the marketing departments who were already understanding that transition were able to leverage on that. Companies like Brand Samosa or the company that we launched during the pandemic, Decoded Technologies, we were able to do great because we were already doing the transition. One more thing I would like to talk about, that sales is the end of it. Lead generation is where you get the data to call and sell. Marketing is where the lead generation happens. Digital is the word which is added. It just has changed the medium of communication to the consumers. The problem that a lot of companies still are having, and we have this challenge with our clients also, that we sign up and they come to and ask, okay, we want to do digital marketing or we want to do a lot of digital activities. So Facebook बना दो, LinkedIn बना दो, creative कर देते हैं, content कर देते हैं, let's reach out to people. And we do that great. Demand is generated. The people are there in your funnel now. They have filled up a form, they've come to your website and they have sent a message only. Just because the power is with the consumer today, it now takes on an average 18 interactions from the day a customer first hears your name to the time they sign up the chat with you. So the conversion now takes 18 interactions, and about a decade back this was only 4. And that's a big change. Meaning, even if you have a data of somebody, even if you have them coming to your website, signing up for some newsletter or something, does not mean they're gonna buy it. The sales cycle is now controlled by the customers. The number of interactions with you, the touch points, the moment of truth that we call, is increased 4 times. It's now what, 89, I said. The problem that a lot of companies have is that they don't have internal processes to keep engaging with the customer from the day that they have first shown interest in you as a brand to the time they actually sign up a check. And that is where they're missing. Getting somebody's contact is the easiest thing today, but you have to engage with them again and again without being dependent on the platforms like the Facebook or Google or LinkedIn or any other. You have to have your own funnel and you have to engage with them again and again, and we call that lead nurturing. And that is where they're missing. The last part is that they're missing is that since the customer has evolved from the awareness stage to constantly being engaged with you, the education has happened, now they're ready. The sales team is not understanding, or they're not equipped, or they're not trained enough to shape, or customize their conversation based on the journey that the customer has had. Let me give an example. If a customer has consumed 3 articles from me, has watched 2 webinars from me, have filled up a form that we want a consultation, has compared our pricing, have already done a comparison study, maybe gone through our case study that we sent to them, this customer needs a different kind of pitch from the salesperson in comparison to a customer who has just filled up a form with us and is at the beginning of the stage. Now, one company needs to have that CRM and information with every lead that they have, and then they have to train their salespeople also that, okay, this customer is at this early stage. Let's call this customer as a subscriber or maybe a marketing qualified lead. Your pitch has to be X, Y, Z. And if this customer has done these 5 activities and is at the stage of sales qualified lead, then your pitch has to be this, and then the proposal has to be different, then the questions have to be different. So more than the outside of the company digital marketing activities, as we say, the bigger challenge now faced by businesses, small, big, medium, whatever you call it, is to build the internal processes to coordinate and connect with the outside digital activities, and then train their team and their processes to be in sync with that to get the full value of this whole digital transformation. And most of them are not able to do that at the moment. It's lack of skill, lack of understanding, and it's killing their businesses. I'm afraid of the fact that the runway is very short now for these small to medium businesses. They don't have 7 months or 2 years or 5 years now to okay चलो experiment कर लेते हैं, सीख लेते हैं, देख लेते हैं, कर लेते हैं. The landscape is shifting very fast, and if they don't do it right now, the cash crunch is going to be there. The cash the cash flows are going to be hitting, and they're facing a lot of problems. I just hope that we understand that this is not only कि मैंने Facebook पेज बना लिया और मैं कुछ कुछ पोस्ट डालता रहता हूँ और मेरा हो गया डिजिटल मार्केटिंग. It's not that. It's an actual digital transformation, and the faster that they pick this up, the better it is for them.
I completely agree to you because the gestation time of deals, lasting with an agency, because there's so many options. इसने नहीं deliver किया, then move on to the next one. The gestation time is so small, so little that the agencies have to be on their feet. Pehle, it was like they were in a monopoly situation. Now there's so many options available. So now they need to be on their foot. And of course, they can't rely on a platform for lead generation or anything. Initially, they were relying on newspapers, televisions, and now we can't just say that we are relying on LinkedIn and Instagram for that matter. CRMs have come into place wherein people are building their own funnels. Else, एक दिन जिस तरह TikTok खत्म हुआ है, everything will go down. And and you can't just rely on a platform or an algorithm to sustain your business. So you need to build something sustainable, and that's how marketing ka landscape has
And I think
eventually changed.
the brand recall value. So, for example, I ran an ad campaign. Right, somebody saw my ad, filled up a form with me. I'm thinking as a business that okay, now I got the lead. The problem is that by the time your sales team calls these person, explains the product, sends a proposal, and then the person takes a decision, it's going to be about a week or let's say 10 weeks. During that, this person is going to be flooded with 15,000 posts every day into his phone, right? The chances of you being remembered or they remembering that, oh, I filled up a form and there was a company and there was an ad that I saw, the chances of that recall value is almost negligible. Almost negligible. Meaning, even if you ran an ad, somebody filled up a form, you got the lead, yeah, and then you calling up and you hoping, oh, usne form bhara hai, to yaad to hoga hi. It's almost dead. You have to engage with them very, very often, very, very regularly. So the brand recall value is very important. For that, you need internal processes of CRM so that you can segmentize your database in the funnel. And then you have to have emails or other ways of sending them customized education information. And then your sales team also has to be patient and customize their pitches accordingly. So this whole thing is now important for every business. There are agencies who probably can do or cannot do. I don't know about that, but then business is needed. They can get it done through an agency if they're capable enough, or they can build it. But this is what they need. This is complete shift in the way marketing has to happen.
Makes a lot of sense. um you know what, you've actually summarized whatever I've learned so far, how it has evolved, and it has been very much on point. So thank you so much for your answer. Anjali, why don't you put forward the next question that we have for Mr. Harish?
Yeah. So, Harisa, anyone who has ever dabbled with the idea of building a startup has always had this one question in mind, that should an entrepreneur build an online audience around their startup before they actually launch it? Or should they first get their startup out there in the real world, try to grow it a bit, and then start the whole online content creation journey? So, what, according to you, is the right strategy for that?
Yeah. So this online content creation versus offline as a thought process doesn't make sense. To me, you have to identify where is your consumer and wherever that consumer be, you need to find a way to reach to that consumer. Having said that, for a startup, it is very important to do the following things. First is, focus on building value. Don't focus on valuation. A lot of entrepreneurs get carried away very early days by valuation, that I'll build something to sell. As an entrepreneur, you need to build something to last. If you build something to last, trust me, it will give you its weight in gold. But if you build something with the idea to sell, you'll be focusing all the time on just building valuation and going up complete the wrong path. So build something that wants to last. Second is, in early days of your startup, focus on sales, not so much on marketing. A lot of people get carried away by doing brand building. If you're going to have a startup and you want to go and raise VC capital in 6 months' time, the question the VC will ask is how many people are using your product and how many have used it the second time. These are the two important questions to ask. Do you already have a number of people using your product, B2B, B2C, whatever be the model? Are people finding a product valuable? And the second thing is, are they coming back to buy? No business can depend on finding new customers every day. You need to be able to sell to the same customer again and again and again. So if you have built a customer base who's using your product, they are finding it valuable and they are coming back to rebuy the product, I think that is the right time to kind of get going. Now, whether you do online and offline doesn't matter. Go where your customer is. If your startup is going to be a restaurant, I mean, obviously you need to do online and offline. If your complete product is an online product, you will need to go online. So don't get into online offline debate. Focus on getting customers, focus on getting people to use the product, and focus them on getting them again to your product.
That very well answers the question. So I call myself as an organic growth specialist, and most of the people who come to me are like, "Do you prefer running ads before going into the organic strategy, or do you prefer going organic and then including paid marketing?" And I just tell them that you need to see how sustainable your revenue is. If I give you a strategy of 10 months of organic, will you be able to be in the business without running ads and getting revenue out of it? So basically, XYZ factors like how much money you have, how much can you spend on branding and luxury and organic for that matter, and how what your consumer wants. If you're an e-com, it'll take some time to build that organic influx, but if you're a very homegrown brand, you're starting with the basics, you need to do organic marketing so that you don't have to spend a lot of money on ads. So there's no fixed route in marketing, wherein you can either you should build a brand and then launch, or you should launch and then build a brand, or you should do organic or paid first. There's no fixed way. And you're absolutely right, you need to understand your consumer. At the end of the day, consumer is the king. So thank you so much for that amazing answer. My next question is to Miss Paula. My question is that you have been into the world of storytelling, and it's in Marathi. What are the pros and cons of choosing a regional language as the language of your communication? uh, don't you fear, or you did not fear back then, that you might lose out a lot of people as your target audience because you were using a particular language, and probably Hindi or English is much more widely spoken? So did you have that apprehensions, and what are the pros and cons of choosing a regional language and growing a brand around it?
I think that doing something in a regional language was always the entire point for us. We started with our first show, Casting Couch, and immediately, got some investment offers from people who were saying, let's do the same thing, but we'll get Bollywood stars, we'll do it in Hindi, and you'll have a huge market reach. And straight up, we said no, because that's the entire point, is to make it in Marathi, because we want to advocate for Marathi language content. We want to promote Marathi as a cool language, because a lot of young Maharashtrians at that time didn't get anything nice in Marathi that was up to date, that was current, that was, catering to something like that's available in English language or even in Hindi language, wasn't available in Marathi. And honestly, the if we were going to start a same content channel in Hindi language back then, even today it's still true, we would have been entering a market which was already getting quite full. And the entire fun of doing Marathi and was that we were the first ones. We were the first ones to do a Marathi digital content brand, and there's something unique to be had in that, because there's also that unlimited potential of reaching out beyond the Marathi audience with subtitles, with dubbing. Licensing the same show can happen in multiple languages once you've established it in one language. And I think that there's tons of potential to grow a brand, um, even if you start vernacular, because first of all, regional languages like Marathi, we're talking about 85 million people in the world speak Marathi, which is not a small number. It's the 15th largest language group, and it's bigger than some really major European languages. So there's no fear about missing out on the market. I mean, if you consider that Bhadipa has 9 lakh subscribers on YouTube, then you could actually argue that we've already reached out 1% of the entire Marathi market, which is not too bad. And it's because we do Marathi language content, not because we're trying to reach the most number of people ever. And especially as you go into a digital space and you are telling stories which are very specific and homegrown, the more rooted and more local you get with your characters, with your storytelling, the more people will relate strongly to your characters' journeys, even if they're not from the same background. So we can all argue that something like a Sairat is an extremely relatable, beautiful story that we can all relate to, even if we may not be Maharashtrian, but it's because it's extremely rooted. And that's why it's traveled all over the world and done such a good box office. And I think the same logic applies to any kind of a content in vernacular languages. When it goes to something outside of the content space, I really can't say if your product needs to choose a language to start in. Everything's going to depend on what your product is. But definitely, I would say that we wouldn't be where we are today if we had gone for a Hindi or an English language content channel.
Makes a lot of sense. When you are launching a product, it should be purely based on the values that you want to give to the market rather than getting influenced by the numbers, because numbers are just at the end of the day vanity matrix, and they'll be in the air. So very, very tree size answer. Thank you so much for that. And I think Anjali, you should hit with the next question. I am loving the conversation with Paula. So if you have another question for her, it'll be amazing to
Sure.
hear her thoughts.
Yes, Paula ma'am, I have a question for you. That today we see certain big brands creating a separate digital identity in each country. So, for example, Netflix, which is very popular on social media, is present as both Netflix India, Netflix USA, and so on. And the way it communicates on each of these pages is different according to the change in the audience. So, moving a few more years into the future, do you think big brands like these are going to go hyper local? Say like a Netflix Marathi or a Netflix Telugu that communicates with people in their own regional language? And if yes, then should specific startups today start leveraging any regional background that they have?
I would say yes and no to the question. You would get specific investments from these platforms into regional languages. For sure, that will happen if it's not already started happening, which it has. But it won't be at the same level as, say, a national type of a branding, because what you're talking about is national based branding, which is extremely cultural. And that's why it is a specific communication for each page, say an Instagram handle. But when you get into language, you're not just going cultural, but you're going language also, and it becomes extremely niche. And what you might see more of is what, say, Facebook and YouTube have done. In the last 5 years since we started, they put a very concerted effort into promoting Marathi language creators on their platforms, into making their platforms available in regional languages, and into trying to build that community of regional language content creators, because they knew that it was going to be important. But those are platforms, those are not brands like a Netflix. So a Netflix, I would expect them at some point in the future, there may be a Netflix Marathi, but it's only going to happen once they reach a certain density of content or something like that. And the size of the Marathi market is never going to be the same as the potential of an Indian market. So it's a little difficult question to answer, but I would say with regards to the example. But if you're going to talk about what should a brand do now, I would say first just focus. I think it's the same answer that everybody else has been giving. First, focus on what is your core service, what is your core business. Think about the rest of that stuff later. Uh, Bharipa has been around for 5 years now almost, and we don't have a marketing team. So just consider like that your product can be strong enough to speak for itself. You don't have to stress about these things. Just have a really strong message, and if it's consistent in all of the stuff that you do, then it will reach its audience, no matter what language it's in.
This is by far a very beautiful answer. I did not know that you did not have a marketing team at the back end, and which just gives me the hope, although puts me out of the business, but gives me the hope that anything and everything can grow if it has potential. You really don't need masterminds and people from this university, that university doing this, that, and all those click funnels and the big huge words. If your product has the potential, it will speak for itself. End of the story. So thank you so much. And now my next question is from Mr. Sam. India is known as a youthful country in a way that a lot of youth is now coming, trying to break free from the shackles of being either in MBBS or engineering. We are going all digital, thanks to Geo, thanks to so many yojanas that the government has introduced. Do you think India is the launch pad for digital marketing services, as it was for IT services when globalization, privatization, and liberalization happened, and we became the software hub, or the hub for IT services? Do you think that is going to happen with digital marketing services as well, given that the whole kind of youth is trying to explore, and content writing and digital marketing are going to be the next engineering and MBBS?
It's a very difficult question to answer, honestly. The Indian in me would like to say yes, but the businessman in me, the brain, the mind that has to answer this question will have a lot of questions, and there are a lot of things that we need to do before we can get to a very resounding yes as an answer. So let's see what we have at our hands, the opportunity. We are a young nation. We have a lot of young people. So the digital technology adoption is much higher, and the rate at which we are adopting this is very high. That means any change that is going to happen is going to be picked up very quickly by us. The challenge, however, is that we are at the consumer side of it. So we spend very long number of hours on digital platforms, trying to watch videos, trying to consume the content that people are creating. And as we know in business, whoever creates the content or creates the product makes the money. The ones who consume the content, they end up being the customers, and then they pay for it. So if India keeps on becoming a consumer-driven economy, also in the digital context, then this answer is going to be very I mean, not very happy or not very positive. It's going to be no, we don't have that. There's another problem that we have. In order to be able to deliver services, being a content driven company or a marketing company using the digital platforms, you need to have two things. One, you need to have obviously the understanding of the tools and the technology that are available. I know Facebook, I know LinkedIn, I know how their algorithms work. I can click some buttons here and there. I can run ads on Facebook and Google and all. So that's the tactical part of it. That's easier to adapt by the young people because they're already there on Facebook, on the social media platforms. But there's another side of that, and that is the strategy side of marketing. How using the consumer psychology you can create content, how using the marketing technology you can read data, and based on that data analytics you can design your next campaign, you can design the fine tunes that you're going to make and all that. So all the science behind marketing that goes, we do not have that at our hands. Our schools are not teaching that, our colleges are not teaching that, our society is not teaching that, our young people are not learning that. And unless you have the strategical understanding of how marketing as a function behaves or works on the side of consumer psychology and on the side of the marketing technology side of it, we are not going to be able to create a company which delivers world-class marketing services using the digital platform to the digitally driven company, either in India or outside India. And that's going to be a big challenge for us. So I don't know. I mean, like what we need to do, we need to focus on transitioning ourselves from the only advantage that India so far has had is that we are so many of it. Like we are a lot of people. Anybody want to sell anything? Come India, sell it here. We are so many of it. Burger बेचना है बेच दो, OTT बेचना, entertainment बेचना, सब बेच दो because हम बहुत सारे हैं. And that's the only advantage as a economy that we've had so far is that we were cheap. So we are cheap labor, right? We know English and we are so many and we are cheap labor. So anything that was being done in $1,000 in US, fine, we can do it in $500. Fine. That's the only advantage. We need to change that. That the advantage that India is going to have is not only that we are cheap, but we can deliver better value. And we can do that. Companies like Infosys or TCS, we have shown that we can do that. We can, and Zoho for that matter, we can create world-class products made in India for the world. Having the capacity or the capability or the will to do the same in digital marketing or normal marketing per se. Do we have the enough infrastructure? I don't know. Do we have enough willpower? I don't know. Do we have enough? I mean, the audacity of dreams. I don't know, because I see a lot of young people who can learn the marketing technology, the tools, the AI, the data analytics, and everything, and they can also spend a lot of time on studying the consumer psychology, how brands function, and everything. But rather than doing that, I see them trying to be an influencer in their own genre, and that's a sad thing to me. I mean, I hit 100,000 followers on LinkedIn very quickly, and I had to ask myself a question: what I'm going to do from now onwards? The easiest and the quickest way for me to monetize was, okay, let me be a coach. You know, I can sell courses, I can sell programs, and I can teach a lot of people, and I can make money. I can be very popular. I decided not to do that. I decided to start a company, and we consciously chose not to have courses for young people. We decided to serve companies in helping them digitally transforming their sales and marketing operations. And we have clients from India, we have clients abroad, and we're trying to grow that. That will and resolve that, okay, I'm going to remove or resist the short-term temptations of being an influencer, but I'm going to learn more about the science of it, the technology of it, and I'm going to be behind it and build a company around it. That I think is going to be the very key important.
Exactly. Was that we became the back end of every company क्योंकि हम IT ऐसे बहुत basic level पे we were able to manage. All the call centers of major companies are in India. So I get your point. I'll sum up very quickly because we have a lot of questions coming from the audience itself. That you need to, so you are a very nice country with a lot of people and a rich culture is one thing, but you really need to upskill yourself rather than going for vanity metrics wherein you are becoming influencers and all of the time. So you really need to work hard on learning the skills and then probably think that India can influence the digital state of the world. So thank you so much for that amazing answer, Mr. Sam. I'll ask one last question from Mr. Harish, and then all the questions that we've got from the audience would be taken. And I think Anjali has an announcement to make. Yes, please go ahead.
Paula ma'am, thank you so much for being a part of the panel. We understand you have to go for another meeting.
Thank you so much for having me. If any of you guys had questions which I won't be able to answer in the Q&A, you can always DM me on Instagram. That's the best way to get in touch. I'll go through my social messages and find you. Right?
Thank you so much, ma'am.
All right, I'm going to spam you because we had a lot of questions for you. So we'll see you on your Instagram DM, in your Instagram DMs. All the best, and thank you so much for giving us your time.
Thanks so much, everyone. Have a great night. Bye-bye.
Yeah. Bye. Okay, so Mr. Harish, that gets me to you for the final question. That is, what were your initial challenges while setting up a digital marketing agency? Do you think there were any entry barriers that time which have been diminished now in 2021, given that the information is now accessible over the internet? The CAs are so accessible, everything is getting so cheap, so practically setting up a digital marketing agency is very easy. And now there's a very famous saying that हर नुक्कड़ पे इतने चाय वाले हैं उतने ही digital marketers हैं. Do you agree with this? And how do you think people are coming out of that clutter? How agencies like yours are standing out there?
Yeah. Many part of answers to your question. The first is about when I started, what was the challenge? I think our biggest challenge was helping corporates and businesses understand that social media is a channel where businesses need to be there to communicate. I remember one of my very first meetings with the MD of a large company, and I was explaining him the power of Facebook and why his brand needs to be on Facebook. And he looks at me incredulously and says, Mr. Tibrewala, you seriously think I need to be on Facebook? I mean, my daughter is spending all her time on Facebook. Do you think my company should be on Facebook? So from that point of time, when people had no clue what is social media and the power of social media, to a time where everybody believes that digital and social is actually the way to go, has been like the big transformation. And what the 9 months of COVID have only made that movement to digital much faster. Now brands believe that not only do we need to use social channels, but we need to be sure that we can sell products to our clients and services, B2B or B2C, using some kind of a digital platform. So right from a time when nobody wanted to believe in digital to a time when everybody believes that business will be driven by digital and digital alone has been a big challenge. When you talk of the plethora of agencies, I think they also stay at different kind of a bracket. So it's like a pyramid. In a capitalist society, moment there's an opportunity, lot of people are going to jump in, and they're going to find their own space at different levels. So you'll have people at the bottom of the pyramid who still sell social media or digital services by number of posts and number of updates and that kind of a metrics. And then you'll have people at the top of the pyramid who don't even talk about number of, they talk about the brand and where do you want to take the brand? How much more market share do you want? How much more share of voice do you want? How much more increase in sales you want? And then we'll come back and tell you what you need to do on digital. We also need to keep in mind, a lot of this discussion has been around digital and Facebook, and I want to point out that digital is not just Facebook and LinkedIn. Building an app is digital, taking care of the website is digital, augmented reality and virtual reality, which will start happening very quickly and very fast moment we have 5G, is digital. Voice applications are digital, blockchain is digital. The plethora of digital solution services is simply huge. So as a startup, whatever students or entrepreneurs, we shouldn't just focus on Facebook and LinkedIn and think of that as digital. The entire folio of digital services is huge, and one has to specialize in each one of them independently. The guy who does search engine optimization typically doesn't understand social media marketing, and the guy who does social media marketing, doesn't know how to build an app. So within the digital sphere, you will have people at different levels, and you will have people who specialize in different services.
Got it. You can't just generalize the whole scenario and think. And you're right. People are actually selling digital marketing services on the basis of number of posts and everything. But you need to keep the ulterior motive of the company in the forefront and then see what all strategies can be applied. Very well appreciated. And because you had talked about a hotel chain and your experience and how luxury defines and experience defines if the customer is going to get back or not. The audience has a very wonderful question for you, which is that a lot of companies are, marketing at 0 rupees. They're not putting a lot of money into marketing and they're still thriving. And one of the examples is Tesla. How can you explain its success despite spending $0 in marketing? Or do you
Yeah, I
think it is
think
$0?
no, it probably is close to $0, and for a very long time we never saw brands like Google or Amazon even spend money. So one is that they had a very
Yeah.
innovative, they had a very innovative positioning. There was a market requirement, and they quickly moved into that market requirement. Very innovative position. And then in a company like a Tesla or an Apple, the founder himself is the brand. When Elon Musk puts out a tweet, whatever he says is what people kind of lap up. So if you look at their strategy, they have made their CEO the brand ambassador. He's the Amitabh Bachchan of that company. He has built that position. Sam started by saying that you need to build your own story. He has built that story as a pioneer, a person who understands physics and cars, a person who is committed to environment and to sustainability. He has built his entire story around that. I mean, how many of us on this call know that Ford was the first company ever to build an EV in the year 1999? But they just couldn't take the story to market. They couldn't live with that story. So now Tesla comes with an opportunity. That they found an opportunity, very innovative situation, and they use their CEO as the brand ambassador to deliver the message.
Yes, very rightly said that it's because they had an opportunity and they grabbed it, and now we are seeing it as a zero rupee marketing. But there's a lot of effort that goes behind, and yes, the brand itself of the CEO speaks volumes of the brand. So I think, Mr. Sam, you're trying to do the same thing with brand Samosa. You're so famous as a founder that people are drawn towards the agency. So that's one model which is again working for companies wherein the founder is so huge in terms of his following and followership that the brand usually gets sustainable. Very valid answer, Mr. Harish. Thank you so much. And we have opened the panel for more questions. Anjali, let's start with the first question that we have. Also, meanwhile, everybody who has any questions, please send it across in the chat box itself. The first question that I have for you, Mr. Sam, from the audience is three pieces of advice that you give to anybody and everybody who's entering the digital space right now.
Okay, and this is going to be very important. Anybody who is trying to do anything in business, okay, it's extremely critical. And the first and the most important thing is to
I'll just
understand that.
excuse me. Anybody who's using the laptop, please put yourself on mute. We can hear the typing. Thank you so much.
All right. So I was beginning to say that the first thing that everybody needs to understand that people, the customers that you call them customers, consumers, no longer want to deal with nameless, faceless organizations. They don't want to deal with logos anymore, right? So they want to deal with people. The social media, the Web 2.0 has made it, not only desirable but a certain level of that we this is the new norm, that okay, we can reach out to Mark Zuckerberg tomorrow. We can talk to Elon Musk. We can talk to the Tim Cook, the Sundar Pichai, and everybody of the world. And we know that the people behind those logos are the people, and we want to connect with them. So the expectation of dealing with people is a huge thing nowadays, and therefore no company can live as a logo. So when you try to reach out to your customers, make sure that the people behind the teams need to be active on social media, right from the founder. You're the biggest brand and you have to be there. And I get this question a lot of times that okay, I want to build my company's brand, I don't want to brand myself. तो मेरा लिंक्डइन नहीं मुझे करना है, मेरा फेसबुक नहीं करना है, उसको छोड़ दो, मेरे पेज से आप कुछ करवाओ. Now, company ka page is a problem. One, the social media algorithms doesn't allow anything to be done on the company page. You cannot reach out, you cannot comment. The organic reach is almost dead, and then the other part is the psychological point of it. So we need to understand that. So what it is that young people can do: put yourself out there, make sure that you have a brand, okay, and the brand that you can build is building on your story, your authenticity. That's number one. Number two is to understand that what you are actually trying to do. So to create a niche is very important here. People are not going to search for everything. You cannot be everything for everybody. You have to understand that okay, this is my target customer, and this is this particular problem I'm trying to solve for them. So you have to be either specializing in B2B, as Harish said, that you have to have a clear understanding that I work on apps, or I work on your website, or I work on the strategy part of it, or I work on the content part of it, or I specialize with, industry-wise, you can be saying that, okay, I'm a retail expert, I'm an e-commerce expert, or I'm an industrial expert. You have to find your niche, and then you have to reverse engineer everything that you do from there. So there is actually a formula. I don't want to take a lot of time on that right now, but you can do that. And then the third thing is to have the internal processes in place. Okay, very critical, very important. You may end up having a social media page, or a Facebook or a LinkedIn page, and you may end up creating a lot of content. You may end up having a lot of eyeballs also. But those eyeballs will not be converted into any damn business for you unless you have some kind of funnel management, some kind of internal processes and that process captures that eyeball and turns that into the machine and eventually takes the business out of it. Because unless you do that, all the activity that you're doing is only for the applauses. You're going to be there, you're going to be putting a post, people are going to talk about it, you're going to go viral, and then you're going to feel awesome about it, and then everybody's going to forget about you. And you keep doing that for 4 months, and then you start realizing you're running out of money, and you no longer can create content at scale, you no longer can sustain the team who can do it for you, and then you're going to be going out of business. So these are the
Makes
3 points.
sense.
In order of the importance, the first and most important is that you need to understand that it is you who are going to lead the entire thing on your shoulders and make sure that your employees, your team, your people put themselves out there on the social, into the world, let people interact with them. You become the whole goddamn brand. That's one. Number 2 is you find out your niche. You understand that I'm going to do one thing and I'm going to be the big daddy of that one thing. And this is my target customer, this is what I'm going to do for them, and that's it, nothing else. And then the third thing you do is to create internal processes so that whatever you do on social, everything can be channelized into this whole funnel, and you turn business out of this. Money will keep you alive.
Makes sense.
Sales
Makes a
fixes
lot of
everything.
sense.
These 3
Yeah.
things, my suggestion for people gonna be.
That's amazing. I think even though I'm in the industry, I can follow these tips. So, very useful tips and hacks. And prioritization is very important. So, just see, every meme that came is now just a story of past. So, probably you become a digital trend, you become an influencer, you'll come, but jitna easily you come, utna easily you'll go. So, very valid point. Think of sustainability. Thank you so much, everyone, all the 150 people who joined us initially. Thank you so much for being such a lovely audience and sending all the questions, because the speakers now have to leave. We'll not be able to take any more questions. Thank you so much, Pune Startup Fest, for organizing such a lovely event and helping me connect with Mr. Sam, Mr. Harish, and Miss Paula. Thank you so much for your support, the audience, and Anjali. You've been an amazing co-moderator. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am. And thank you, Sam sir and Harish sir, for taking off time from your busy schedules and coming in this knowledge edifying session and providing such value for the audience. So thank you so much, Harish sir. Thank you, Sam sir. And thank you, Unnati ma'am, for moderating the session so wonderfully. You elevated the panel discussion to a greater level. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right,
Bye.
thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone. People can find me on Google, type my name over there. You'll get my social media handles. Let's talk if you have more questions. And Anjali, Unnati, Harish, Paula, thank you very much. It's lovely talking to you. Let's connect on other platforms also and engage more.
Absolutely.
Sure.
All right, bye-bye.